You're watching News 3 Now, live at 4, moving forward.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Live at 4 on this Tuesday. Happy Earth Day. Sarah Carlson is filling in today. Brady has the day off. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. It's great outside, isn't it?
I know. Great day for Earth Day. Let's get a look at your first warn forecast. We have Jacob Madison out there on the patio. Not so bad.
Yeah, very nice right now with the sun shining. It feels like the spring out here. Birds are chirping. All things good right now, but we are going to see a little bit more rain throughout the week. However, for the rest of the evening, definitely enjoy the weather. Current radar showing just about nothing in southern Wisconsin. And as I mentioned, temperatures very comfortable, 66 in Madison, but how about lower 70s further west? It is much cooler as you get closer to the lake due to a lake breeze, but still seeing temperatures in the upper 50s in the far eastern portion of our area, lower 50s as you get closer towards Milwaukee. Now, comparing that to 24 hours ago, we are nearly 15 to 20 degrees warmer than this time yesterday, and temperatures tomorrow may be even warmer. Now, looking at your evening forecast, very nice weather is expected, partly cloudy skies, high temperatures dropping into the 50s by around 9 p.m. And then as we get later in the night, we do have a chance of some rain, mainly for areas south of Madison, but it looks like the best chance of showers and storms will be south of Wisconsin entirely. That's the case at least for the overnight hours, because once we get closer to the daylight hours on Wednesday, we are going to see more showers and storms move into the region. But low temperatures aren't going to be too bad. We'll drop into the middle 40s, maybe even lower 50s for southern areas that will see more cloud cover. But for a good chunk of Wednesday, we are expecting to see some showers and storms. I'll talk more detail about that and track another chance of rain before the week is over. All those details will be a little bit later.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. One person is in critical condition after a shooting this morning. Madison police officers responded to Baird Street near Mount Zion Baptist Church on the city's south side. There they found a person with a gunshot wound. Police say the 25-year-old suspect ran away from the scene, but officers in Fitchburg arrested the suspected shooter later. Police say the suspect and the victim know each other. Police also recovered a gun. A little later on Live at 4, our Ellie La Liberté talks with neighbors about what they heard.
In other news, a new bill passed in the state Senate today that would extend the Medicaid eligibility for mothers who just gave birth.
That would give new mothers an extra year of eligibility. Political reporter Will Keneally is live at the Capitol with the latest. Will?
Yeah, Susan, Sarah, this bill passed 32-1. Let me say that again, 32-1. It's rare that we see that level of bipartisan support for a bill like this. Now, Wisconsin is one of the 2 final states to expand Medicaid coverage postpartum. Now, with this vote today, Wisconsin is a step closer to joining the rest of the country in that postpartum care. We spoke with the bill author earlier.
We have a responsibility to show up for our moms. We have a responsibility to show up for our children. And by extending this coverage to 12 months, this bill will ensure that mothers who already qualify don't lose access to essential health services when they need them the most.
Now, that Medicaid coverage can help cover conditions mothers face post-birth. We heard from people testifying on this bill that could include things like heart issues and kidney failure. So this passed the state Senate. It's heading to the state assembly next. Now, we did hear from the leader of Republicans in that chamber that he is a little bit tepid, unsure whether this bill will pass the state assembly, and we'll hear more from him coming up tonight at 5. But for now, reporting from the state capitol, Will Keneally, News 3 Now.
All right, thank you, Will. And new at 4, the Environmental Protection Agency has started firing and reassigning hundreds of workers. An EPA spokesperson says overall more than 280 staff members were fired as part of the agency's reduction. 175 other employees were reassigned to other offices. The EPA says the cuts are in line with President Trump's executive order, which targets diversity, equity, and inclusion. This comes after last week's announcement the agency canceled more than 400 grants.
While the city of Madison is expected to grow by more than 100,000 people, the population of Verona is set to rise by 2 to 4% each year.
And so the city is rewriting its comprehensive plan to account for growth and what residents want to see. Arman Rahman has more.
Verona, Wisconsin, hometown USA, may seem like a small suburb, but it's grown by almost 4,000 people in the past 10 years, and the city says it has to prepare for it to grow even more. That's why city officials are launching a rewrite of the comprehensive plan with 2 open houses on Tuesday. The plan was last updated in 2009, but since then the city's grown from about 10,000 to about 14,000 people. Before the open houses, the city received more than 500 survey responses from residents.
We're looking out now at where we want to see growth in some of those areas outside of the city, and also looking at potential properties within the city that could be redeveloped.
The data show that most people work in Verona but live somewhere else, and about half of new Verona residents in the past 10 years were renters. So what changes do people living and working in Verona want to see? I'll have more on that tonight at 5. For now, reporting in Verona, Arman Rahman, News 3 Now.
And if you missed the open house earlier, there is another at the Verona Public Library from 6 to 8 p.m. tonight. And next on Live at 4, what we know about the Vatican's plans to lay Pope Francis to rest.
Plus, the next steps the Cardinals will take to choose a new leader of the Catholic Church.
We are learning more about the upcoming plans to lay Pope Francis to rest after the 88-year-old pontiff passed away yesterday morning. Right now, Francis is in an open coffin in the chapel of his Santa Maria residence. Tomorrow, Francis' coffin will be transferred to St. Peter's Basilica, and people will be able to pay their respects Wednesday through Friday. His funeral will be on Saturday, and President Donald Trump does say he plans to attend the service. And we can take a live look right now at St. Peter's Square. You can see it's dark there, but beautifully lit. The Pope's coffin is not yet there, but people are still gathering to mourn him. Also gathering in Vatican City right now, cardinals ahead of the process to elect a new pope. That process is known as conclave. Out of the 138 cardinals who meet the age requirements to participate, 120 are chosen as electors.
Once the electors are decided, they are sealed in the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican until a pope is elected. It takes a 2/3 majority for one of the cardinals to be chosen as pope. After the counting, the ballots are burned in a furnace with specific chemicals to make one of 2 colors of smoke. The smoke will be black if a pope has not been chosen, and white when a new pope is selected. The last 2 popes were selected in under 6 ballots.
In other news, we're continuing our investigative coverage into the Dane County Human Services process for handing out contracts paid for in part by your local tax dollars.
A News 3 Now investigative report detailed loopholes and a lack of vetting within the process for awarding contracts to local groups. And now the author of that article, News 3 Now's content and assignment manager, Jason Cuevas, is back with an update. Hi, Jason. Good to see you again.
It's good to see two of you.
So for people who did not see the first part of your investigation, let's talk a little bit about what you found when you looked into the county's process for awarding contracts. How does it work?
Okay, the big thing to understand in this is a major contract, which is any contract of $100,000 or more, must have a vote before the full county board. Now, there's some weird ways it can happen, but one way or another, it goes before the full board. I found 2 contracts for urban triage for housing navigation and rapid rehousing, one for $397,000, one for $276,000 that did not go before the full board. The way this was done is Human Services broke these contracts up. So it was an original contract under $100,000, one for $58,000, one for $40,000, while at the same time doing an addendum for the full amount. So it could kind of go through the rules, if you will.
And this is unusual. This is something you have never seen before and have looked at these kinds of things in the past.
I have not, and in fact, I had an open records request to emails, and it has Human Services people discussing how they weren't sure how to write it up and date it because they're not used to doing a contract that has an addendum at the same time as a contract.
So what is the update on the investigation?
So first is that I did obtain a bunch of emails that show...
Yeah, here they are.
Yes, this was not an accident. They intentionally did it to get under the amount. In fact, at first the contracts were going to be for $99,000 to be under. I did not get the full amount of why they switched it, but we know obviously they did to even lower. And it's also about the county's response from the county executive's office, which has been kind of a strange interpretation. They're saying that because appropriations funding for housing was in the budget, that counts as going before the full board. But the reality is that contracts over $100,000 are listed in the budget under Human Services in Appendix A. There's more than 100 in this budget The urban triage contracts were not on it. And it's somewhat strange that the county would say that just appropriations funding counts.
And it's probably important to point out, you've mentioned a lot of dollar amounts. Where are these funds coming from?
Well, these are interesting. This is some county funds, which would be taxpayer money, but there's also ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, that Biden passed a few years ago. That's part of it. And I want to clarify, because there's some people who have been asking me to report about the commingling of funds between ARPA and county funds. That is actually not a violation in and of itself. Now, if the commingling causes the funds to be used in a way that's not appropriate, it is. But the reason I didn't put that in the story is just mingling those funds is actually not a violation. I've seen some people online saying that is not correct.
So where does it go from here?
Oh, well, we're going to keep looking more. I mean, I have a lot of questions. I even question if the original contracts that were under the amount were even appropriate, because the ordinance says a contract under 100,000 not deemed a major contract. But these emails shows that these were major contracts and were then split up. So I'm not sure they even qualified to begin with. I have more open records requests. We're going to keep digging, and if I have anything more, we'll be sure to let everyone know.
Have you heard from the board or the county executive, or has anybody responded to the investigation?
I have what Carrie Springer, the county exec's chief of staff, wrote me in the article, but not since this article has come out. I've had quite a few community people who want to talk to me, but not be named. That's kind of what I can say on that. But no, I would love it if the county executive would talk to us about this. I hope she does.
And thank you for continuing to work on that. And you can find Jason's story on channel3000.com. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jason. Let's get a check on the weather now. Jacob is watching the forecast. A pretty nice day on this Earth Day. Rainy to start, but sunny and warm now this afternoon.
Yeah, and the rest of the evening is going to continue to be very nice. Temperature-wise, we're going to continue to see them warm up, actually. We'll have 70s for highs both Wednesday and Thursday, or at least near 70. But we still have a few chances of showers and storms this week, specifically tomorrow and then again on Friday. But it does look like we are going to be dry over the weekends. Now, for tonight into early tomorrow, we do have a small chance of severe weather, marginal risk for areas south of Madison. But it looks like the severe weather will stay south of Wisconsin entirely, but don't be surprised for those of you near the Illinois border if you see a stray thunderstorm that might produce some strong winds and maybe some minor hail as well. And as we look at the forecast throughout the rest of the evening, much of the area not going to see anything, but further south you could see some of those showers and storms possibly forming. But once we get closer to sunrise, the less likely we will see the severe weather. And although we're expecting a good chance for showers and thunderstorms for everybody after sunrise Wednesday, these are not expected to be severe, but they could produce some heavy rainfall. Now we're expecting a little bit of a break in the rain during the late morning and early afternoon, and then later in the afternoon and evening we'll see more showers and storms move into the area. Not going to be quite as heavy as they will be early in the morning, and we could continue to see some light showers Wednesday night, mainly for areas west and northwest of Madison. And as we get into Thursday, continue to see the chance of light showers, but later in the morning and during the afternoon. Although it will be cloudy, we're not expecting a lot of rainfall. Can't rule out some sprinkles, but otherwise fairly dry for Thursday. But then Thursday night into Friday, we're going to see more rain move back into the area. This time the rain will be more consistent, especially early Friday, clearing out by the evening hours, and then the weekend is going to be dry. So to recap all these precipitation chances, likely to see some rain Wednesday and then again on Friday. But during the overnight hours and for Thursday, the rain is less likely. Dry for the most part over the weekend, but the rain chances are going to increase for Monday. Now for the draft, we are going to see some light showers on Thursday for Green Bay with more consistent rain Friday. Saturday looks very nice. It also will be cooler on Friday with highs in the 50s. And Friday is really the only day this week where we're going to see some cooler temperatures with those 50s in the forecast. Every other day, we're expecting highs at least in the 60s, if not 70s. And I do want to mention that early next week, we have another chance of storms, and Monday especially is going to be very mild.
All right, Jacob, thank you. We're getting more insight on Secretary of State Marco Rubio's plan to overhaul the agency he runs. Earlier today, Secretary Rubio rolled out the first stage of his plan with changes that will eliminate 132 domestic offices, cut about 700 positions in Washington, D.C., and close offices focused on war crimes and global conflict. The State Department says the changes are necessary to maintain maintain its efficiency.
Meanwhile, the White House continues to defend Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth after reports that he shared military attack details in another Signal group chat. This one included his wife, brother, and personal attorney. The White House press secretary blames former officials who were top advisors to Hegseth for this instability at the Pentagon, suggesting they are responsible for these leaks. However, the White House has yet to provide evidence of this. Any questions from the press at this point about any leak investigation have now been referred to the FBI and Department of Justice. And coming up on Live at 4, how much Green Bay is spending on security for the draft.
And Eric Franke and Jason Wilde will join us to talk about the Packers' potential first-round picks. We'll be right back.
Live at 4, everyone. The NFL draft kicks off tomorrow. Ahead of the first pick, fencing and security personnel are already surrounding Lambeau Field. The city of Green Bay has spent more than $1 million on safety measures. There are metal detectors and concrete barriers staged at every point of entry. Public safety partners say they're preparing for an estimated 250,000 football fans over the course of 3 days. Officials are comparing this to 3 Packers football games in a row.
Now, our crew will be up in Green Bay for the draft, and they're getting ready to head out tomorrow.
That includes our Eric Franke and Packers contributor Jason Wilde. They join us now with what we can expect from the Packers' first-round pick.
Sarah, Susan, yep, the draft now 2 days away on Wisconsin soil. Once again, we bring in our Packers insider correspondent Jason Wilde from channel3000.com. Jason, good to have you once again as the draft draws near. You talked to Brian Gutekunst yesterday. Of course, he had his pre-draft press conference, and you talk about the first round pick and him saying maybe the first round pick doesn't need to play right away. What did he mean by that?
Well, first of all, let's look at his track record, right? Last year's first-round pick, Jordan Morgan, not a big contributor. 2 years ago, Lucas Van Ness, not a big contributor. Now, there have been years where the first-round pick has had to play right away, like Darnell Savage at safety back in 2019. But then the next year, he drafts Jordan Love, and he sits for 3 years.
Yeah.
So their track record is not to play first-round picks a ton anyway. The reality, though, is they need rookies who are going to contribute. Doesn't have to be the first-round pick. Last year, it was Edgerrin Cooper, it was Evan Williams, it was Javon Bullard. I think they want rookie contributions. It just doesn't have to be that first-round pick.
Now, everybody, every year, the Packers will be sitting somewhere in the 20s, and they want the Packers to make a big splash, maybe move up in that first round. Seems like it happens every year. What do you think about this year?
So there are certainly some players that I think Goody is smitten with that he would love to draft. And the biggest one on the list is Teteroa McMillan. He's a wide receiver from Arizona. And I thought it was really interesting that last year someone asked Goody about Cooper DeJean, and he didn't want to say anything about him. And then yesterday when he was asked about Teteroa McMillan, he was even more clammed up. And I think that indicates to me anyway that's a guy that Goody really likes. The problem is, at 23, no one thinks he's going to be available. And Brian Gutekunst, in his 7 drafts as GM, he has always exercised a first, a second, and a third-round pick. He's never given those up completely in those rounds to go up and get someone. So the idea of him giving up those picks when he only has 8 to work with to begin with, I just don't see him going up and trading up in the first round to get a player that he's targeted.
Well, you write today on channel3000.com about Goody wanting guys who just love the game of football. Doesn't every guy in the NFL draft love the game of football?
Yeah, you would think so, right? And that's not true at all. And I think it's really interesting because they have so many things they can measure, right? They certainly have the on-field production and the film to look at. They have all the testing that they do at the combine. Goody said that he doesn't believe in RAS scores. He didn't even really know what they were, except he then added that they have their own analytics that measure athleticism and potential and everything else. The one thing they can't measure, though, is passion for the game. That is more of a subjective thing they need to figure out. And I know for a fact during my career that I have covered players that loved the things that came with playing in the NFL, but didn't necessarily love the game. It was more a means to an end. And I think with NIL and the transfer portal in college and with players' salaries being so much higher than they were when I started, There's a lot of guys that see this as, all right, I'm going to do this for a few years. I'm going to get my money, and then I'm going to hang it up. And Goody wants those throwback type guys. I don't think he always gets it right, but I do think that that is a clear priority, and that's why I wrote about it at channel3000.com.
All right, Jason, well, we know Packer fans love football. They love the game of football. We will be among them tomorrow in person as our draft coverage begins live from Green Bay. Jason, thank you. Susan and Sarah, back to you.
All right, Eric, thank you. Thanks to Jason as well. And you can watch News 3 Now's special team coverage of the NFL Draft starting tomorrow right here on Live at 4. Eric and Jason will lead our coverage along with sports director Zach Hanley and sports reporter Andrew Banstra. It all starts tomorrow.
I can't believe it.
Coming up on Live at 4, how police are preparing for this year's Mifflin Street block party.
And amid what seems to be an uptick in shootings in Madison, what the numbers actually say about crime. We'll be right back.
Watching News 3 Now, live at 4.
One person is in critical condition after a shooting in Madison this morning.
Madison police responded to Baird Street near Mount Zion Baptist Church on the city's south side. There they found a person with a gunshot wound. Police say the 25-year-old suspect ran away from the scene, but officers in Fitchburg arrested the suspected shooter later. Police say the suspect and the victim know each other. Police also recovered a gun.
And this is just one of a series of shootings in the Madison area in recent days.
Our Ellie La Liberté shows us what one neighbor says she heard and whether this reflects an increase in gun violence.
I was shaking. I'm like, is he gonna go away and not shoot again?
This morning, Jessica Jasper heard gunshots from her home on Baird Street.
Well, it's pretty scary. And I saw the guy get pulled out of the middle building apartment with a gunshot. I know these people. They're my neighbors.
She says the area has a violent past, but according to the Intra-Madison police chief, this type of crime in the city overall is on a downward trend.
We're actually seeing a 10% decrease in the number of shootings citywide, so we've had a cluster here in recent days, but we're still trending in a good way this year.
From January 1st to April 14th, there were 34 shots fired calls. That's 4 less from the same period in 2024. For Jasper, those numbers are comforting, but she's not confident that a downward trend will continue.
Summer's coming, so it's gonna pick up.
Reporting on Madison's South Side, Ellie La Liberté, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Ellie. And now it's time for a look at our first warn forecast, and it's very spring-like, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely very nice out here. Temperatures quite a bit warmer compared to yesterday, and we've been dry for a lot of the day. And if you could believe it, temperatures are actually expected to get a little bit warmer the next couple of days. Current radar not showing anything. May see some rain later in the night, but we're going to be dry for the rest of the evening. And temperatures are very comfortable. Middle 60s for Madison, lower 70s further off to the west. A little bit cooler closer to the lake where there is a lake breeze, but beyond that, still very nice for the entire region. As I mentioned, much warmer than this time yesterday, almost by around 15 to 20 degrees warmer than this time yesterday. We also are not really seeing very strong winds. It's really hard to get a current condition better than what we're seeing out here right now with the sunshine, calm winds, and very, very comfortable temperatures. So throughout the evening, it's going to continue that way. Partly cloudy skies, temperatures in the 60s for the most part, dropping into the upper 50s later in the evening. And we are going to see some rain later in the night, especially for areas south of Madison. But I'm guessing that most of the rain, at least until closer to sunrise, does stay entirely south of Wisconsin. But we will see some showers and storms move into our area around and after sunrise, impacting much of our area, especially during the morning, but we may continue to see some rain later in the day. So I'll talk more in detail about that coming up a bit later.
All right. Thank you so much, Jacob. Well, the Mifflin Street block party is coming up this Saturday. That means officers from Madison Police, University Police, and the Dane County Sheriff's Office will all be patrolling thousands of students flooding the streets.
Our Merrill Hubbard brings us words of caution from city officials and residents living on the block.
The Mifflin Street block party will hit its 56th year this upcoming Saturday. And as usual, students, residents, and city officials are gearing up for the chaos.
Mifflin to me is kind of just a final celebration with all the friends, as we're getting ready to graduate in a couple weeks. I feel like it's our graduation without the parents.
Tobias Berlinski says Mifflin is the last hurrah for senior students like himself, but that he's also taking some precautions for his property. He parks his car on Mifflin, but come Saturday, he'll be parking it elsewhere. This comes after at least one car was vandalized and flipped over at last year's event. While Mifflin's been a tradition for more than 50 years, city officials say it's more of an annual hazard.
Please, first and foremost, don't overcrowd the porches and balconies. And second, if by all means, if you have a motor vehicle in the neighborhood, you've got to move it. You have to move it, or you can assume that it sadly will be vandalized.
Madison police officers say they want partygoers to feel comfortable asking for help if they need it. An updated policy shields someone from being ticketed for underage drinking if they call for help during a medical emergency. Reporting in Madison, Meryl Hubbard, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Marilyn. Now to Wall Street, where stocks rallied today. The Dow jumped more than 1,000 points. The Nasdaq is up 430, and the S&P 500 erased Monday's loss, gaining 130 points. Well, several Catholic leaders with ties to Wisconsin could succeed Pope Francis as the next pope.
Our Kyle Pazorski shares more information on who the contenders are. Kyle?
Yeah, one of the big contenders is this man right here that you're seeing. His name is Raymond Leo Burke. He is one of the contenders coming up this year. We got some information talking about this guy. He was actually part of the Diocese of La Crosse for many years. He was bishop there. Before that, he served and went through several different roles through the diocese. Before going overseas and doing some other roles, he also went to the Diocese of St. Louis. This other man that you're seeing here is Cardinal Timothy Dolan. He's the current Bishop of New York. He also spoke on the upcoming process to bring on a new pope.
There's only one person who knows, the Holy Spirit. Okay, we got to figure out who the Holy Spirit wants, and that's a heavy responsibility.
Now, prior to his time in New York, Dolan served as Archbishop of Milwaukee from 2002 to 2009. He is set to depart for Rome this evening to attend the funeral of Pope Francis. Now, as for Burke, he declined to comment on the Pope's passing and expected conclave when we called him earlier today. He cited other priorities taking place in Rome. It is also important to note that while Burke is a leading conservative voice, about 80% of the voting cardinals were appointed by Francis, who was viewed as leading a more liberal agenda.
Interesting stuff. Thank you, Kyle, so much. Now, coming up on Live at 4, how safe is a CT scan?
A new study is sparking concern that CT scans may cause cancer. Should we be worried? We'll talk about it with UW Health's Dr. Jeff Potoff when we come back.
Welcome back, everybody. CT scans are a vital diagnostic tool in medicine.
But a new study shows the radiation emitted from some medical imaging may cause more harm than previously known. UW Health's Dr. Jeff Potoff is here for his weekly visit. Hi, Dr. Potoff.
Hey, guys. How are you?
So this is really fascinating. This is a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association. What did it show?
So I think this study shows what we've known for a long time and what maybe the general public doesn't know. But CT scans, to generate their pictures, use radiation. And that radiation has a chance of damaging your DNA and causing cancer later in life. So although the risk can be low, and sometimes it's absolutely the right thing to get a CT scan, you don't want to get CT scans just for fun or maybe just because you're nervous, because there is a risk on the other side of that.
This study showed it increased cancer rates by 5% in a one-year period. What's your reaction to that? Is that cause for concern?
I think it's cause for concern if you're not using CT appropriately. Usually what we tell patients, and it varies based on your age, but if I do a CT scan to an individual person, if they're of average age, maybe 30s to 40s, about a 1 in 2,000 chance that that CT that I just did on you could cause cancer later in life. So the risk is not huge, but it's not zero either.
And sometimes it's worth it because you need to do that scan. But you were just saying before we came on camera that it's based on age.
Yeah, so when you think about how CTs cause cancer, the radiation that you get from the picture damages your DNA. Your DNA can go crazy, that can cause a cancer. If I damage your DNA when you're 15 years old, you've got 50, 60 years for that cancer to show up. If someone who is, say, 75 years old or 80 years old has belly pain and I do a CT scan, they don't have as much time for that cancer to develop. So like their risk of developing cancer is closer to 1 in 10,000 versus say 1 in 1,000 for that really young person.
Even with all the precautions that we take.
Yeah, I think what happens is we minimize the amount of radiation to a bare minimum to get the answer we need, because what you don't want is to have appendicitis and not get a CT scan and then have all those complications. That's much more dangerous than getting a CT
scan. So
the
benefits outweigh the risks, for sure.
Absolutely. The other thing we wanted to ask about is a lot of people sort of clump CT scans and MRIs into the same pile.
And ultrasounds.
But
yeah,
not the case.
They're actually different. So CTs and X-rays, like a chest X-ray or a leg X-ray, they use radiation. CT much more than chest X-rays. MRI actually uses magnets to generate their image, and ultrasounds use sound waves to generate their issues. There's no cancer risk from either the magnets in MRI or the sound waves in ultrasound.
So what's your best advice for patients?
My best advice is have a good discussion with your provider. So when I'm seeing someone in the emergency department, they usually come in and they're nervous and they want to feel reassured by having a picture that says they're okay. Sometimes it's better to not get the picture if we're really sure that picture is not going to show something, because I increase your risk for cancer, and if the picture doesn't show anything, or the likelihood that the picture is not going to show anything is high, I haven't done you any favors. I've only potentially given you some risk. So
good question to ask.
Talk with your doctor and say, hey, does this make sense to get a scan?
All right, thank you so much, Jeff from UW. We appreciate your time.
Great to see you, Dr. Potoff. Thanks for being here.
And coming up on Live at 4, today is Earth Day.
When we come back, Josh Spreiter shows us one unique way to participate today and all throughout the year in the 608. That's coming up next. This is a live look at St. Peter's Square in Rome. All is quiet. That's a very serene scene, isn't it?
Is.
It's almost midnight in Rome, 11:46 p.m. The Pope's coffin will be delivered to the Basilica tomorrow, and then the public will begin to pay their respects through Friday. This is also, by the way, where the Pope made his last appearance on Easter Sunday. It's 58 degrees tonight in Rome.
And not quite 58 here. We have a look at our first warm weather, a bit cooler and not too bad though.
Yeah, and temperatures are going to be pretty mild for tomorrow. We'll have highs in the lower 70s, but we also are going to see some rain. We'll see some rain for Wednesday and again on Friday. It does look like, though, we are going to be dry over the weekend. But let's take a look at the rainfall forecast. For the rest of the night, a lot of the area should be dry. Could see some isolated showers and storms south of Madison, but most of that rain, at least initially, will stay south of Wisconsin entirely. Later in the night, closer to sunrise Wednesday, we'll start to see some showers and storms move into our area from the west. And areas off to the west may see the rain before sunrise, but after sunrise, a lot of the region will be seeing those showers and thunderstorms roll through the area, especially early in the morning. Later in the morning and early afternoon, we may get a little bit of a break. Still could see some of those light showers and storms, but we'll see a little bit more consistent precipitation move back into the area closer to sunset during the evening hours. And for Wednesday night, we're going to continue to see some of those scattered showers west and northwest of Madison. Still could see some lingering precipitation for the rest of our area, but the consistent precipitation Wednesday night will mostly be off to the west and northwest. And for Thursday, a lot of the area is expected to be dry, but because we're going to see consistent cloud cover, it wouldn't surprise me if we do see some light sprinkles at times. But otherwise, we're not going to see much for Thursday. But then Thursday night into Friday, we're going to see more consistent precipitation move back into the area, mostly in the form of showers, but we could see some thunderstorms as well, especially Friday morning, and then that may continue into the early afternoon before clearing out by Friday evening. So to recap all the precipitation chances, we are going to see a small chance tonight, but much more likely for the day on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night through Thursday, not going to see as much. The rain chances then will increase again for Thursday night, and for Friday, we're expecting rain again. Dry over the weekend with an increase in rain for next week, Monday. Now for the draft, we'll have highs near 60 tomorrow in Green Bay, lower 50s for Friday, and lower 60s for Saturday. Some light rain Thursday, consistent rain Friday though, and then Saturday does look to be pretty good. Now for our area, we're also going to continue to see some pretty comfortable temperatures. You know, Friday may be the outlier where we see some temperatures dropping into the 50s, but highs will be back in the 60s for the weekend, and with the sunshine, it may feel a little bit warmer. We then could see middle to upper 70s for Monday and Tuesday, and those storm chances Monday and Tuesday could produce some severe weather. Now, it's still pretty far out, a lot can change, but right now the potential for severe weather will be there those 2 days, and then after Tuesday, temperatures may drop a little bit, but still going to be comfortably in the 60s.
All right, thank you, Jacob. On this Earth Day, a Madison-based tech support nonprofit is showing us why e-cycling is so important.
Josh Sprider has the story on DayNet.
On this Earth Day, we're talking about a unique partnership here in the community focused on e-cycling. Sarah Lynn is with DayNet. Sarah, it's good to see you.
Hi, thank you.
So Earth Day, obviously a very important day here in our community. And what is DayNet trying to do in making a difference here in Madison?
Yeah, so most of our programming is kind of around making technology more accessible to folks, and that can be on Earth Day and every day. That includes providing affordable tech support to fellow nonprofits, and it also has our digital equity project. And so that's where we're trying to get folks who are on the other side of the digital divide access to the internet, to technology, to the confidence and skills that they would need to be able to use those tools.
So if folks missed out earlier today, you guys did a little e-cycling event, but this is something that people can do 365 days out of the year.
That's right. The best way to support those kinds of programs that we've got going all year round is just by making a donation. We're a nonprofit, and so we thrive when our donors are supporting us in that way. Daynet.org is the simplest way to do that. You can also donate your used technology all year round, either by reaching out to DayNet directly or to Cascade Asset Management. For example, if you own a business or you have a large amount of technology to e-cycle, you can do that anytime all year. Just let Cascade know that you want it to benefit DayNet, and we're going to see the benefit from that.
And I mean, this is a win-win because you're getting it out of your house, but also helping out another organization.
Absolutely. And the other part that I like to really emphasize, like, not only are you making space and helping digital equity, you're also taking care of the data that is on all of your technology. That can be scary when you're getting rid of that old iPhone or that laptop, all those saved items that are on that computer. Cascade's experts are going to be able to wipe all that data off of the computer, so you can feel safe that nothing in there is going to be dug up later on.
Yeah, some important stuff. All right, Sarah. Well, thank you so much, and happy Earth Day to you.
Yeah, you too.
If you'd like to learn more about DayNet and e-cycling, just go to the story up on channel3000.com. In Madison, I'm Josh Sprider, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Josh, and Sarah, too. It's feeling very April-like outside. It's nice and mild this afternoon.
Yeah, you know, when I was stepping outside just a moment ago, I really felt, you know, it was not only mild, but it felt a little humid out there too, which was really kind of like a feel of like that early summer feel. So that's definitely some good news, and it's going to be very April-like the rest of this week with some pretty comfortable temperatures and plenty of rain. Friday may be on the cooler side. It also may be windy Friday, so it may feel cooler, and then the weekend is looking better compared to Friday, I should say, but it also is going to be dry. Early next week, though, might see our first 80s on Monday.
Oh, boy.
We'll see what happens.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob. We'll be right back. Tomorrow on Live at 4, we'll talk about how much money in the state budget goes toward Wisconsin's prisons. And later on News 3 Now at 6, what student borrowers need to know now that the Education Department is collecting loans in default. That's coming up at 6. Thanks for joining us for Live at 4 today, everybody. We hope to see you right back here tomorrow. News 3 Now at 5 starts right now.